Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Dhammāṃ saranang gacchāmi, Sanghaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Dutiyampi Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Dhammāṃ saranang gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Sanghaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Dhammāṃ saranang gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Sanghaṃ saranang gacchāmi. So welcome everybody to our Tuesday meditation here at the Mahavihara. And so this past weekend had this opportunity to go. Bhante Saranapala had organized this meditation in the park, which I think he's been doing since like early 2000s. It kind of goes to this park. A couple of he's been. This is the second park I've seen him do it at. He did it at a different one 2 years ago, but goes to this park and basically sets up the Buddha image under the tree. And then he sits under the tree, and he invited myself and Bhante Yuttadhammo to join him this time. So we went there, and then it's like a retreat, kind of underneath the tree. And then the monks do their traditional pindapat, alms round, and then they eat out of their bowls under the tree. So being there actually made me very happy. Kind of was a kind of very lovely experience, and was very happy that Bhante had organized it, because a lot of the training that Buddhist monks get, a lot of the framework for their meditation practice, it comes from a lifestyle, really. It kind of comes from a particular way of living, much more than a technique, much more than any particular, say, meditation method. So essentially, when we come to train ourselves in gaining happiness in our own minds, what we're actually looking to train is our mind, but what we're developing more or less is actually a lifestyle. It's kind of oftentimes kind of what it can seem like is, okay, if there's something wrong, okay, we can mask it in various ways. One can mask any type of difficult emotion with, TV. Watch some TV, it might go away for a little while, Can mask it with, video games. Can mask with, socializing, whatever it is. You can mask various types of emotions that come up for periods of time, doing things for periods of time. And we can change temporarily difficult emotions, difficult mind states through meditation. You can come to a meditation class, do some meditation, and sometimes our mind will feel much lighter after the meditation. So I remember when I first started meditating was at this Zen Buddhist temple, which I think Phoenix and Skylar have gone to, and was actually very happy to find this kind of temple. And oh yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I got the sun. Yeah, there we go. All set. Yeah, that's all good. And so I remember I used to go there, and I was in high school, and I would go there to their meditation sessions. And the meditation session itself seemed like really difficult. I think I told people have heard before, I was kind of like the worst meditator there. It was terrible. I was the guy who was kind of like always, couldn't sit still, and was kind of getting yelled at by the teacher for not sitting still. But I found that every time that I went there, I would leave with this huge feeling of like ease, kind of feeling of relief in my mind that I hadn't felt before. I never felt this, So I would go with my friend once, and he'd be like, "I wish we could bottle this feeling and sell it." Of course, that doesn't happen for everybody. I mean, it's not like my meditation was so amazing. Maybe I just had quite a contrast from my usual way of living. But in any event, what would happen was if, going out there and going to this meditation, remember sometimes I would listen to like a gangster rap on the way back from meditation. And then during the week, I would, be going out and doing all kinds of different things. And I would, I started when I was in high school. And so on the weekend, I would be going out and partying and drinking beer and smoking. And then the time came for the next meditation. I was back at square one, back where I started again, having all the same difficulties, all the same problems that I'd had the previous week, and coming to the meditation and struggling through this meditation, and then feeling at ease again. But there was also a really interesting phenomena that happened too, which was that if I ever thought that I was going to do something, like kind of engage in a lifestyle choice that was kind of against wholesome qualities, engage, going to meditation. One thing is, going out to party or whatever, but say I started to think I was going to take my life on a particular trajectory that was negative, then I noticed my meditation stopped working. Kind of the feelings of ease were just not there at all. It's kind of disappeared. And so meditation only really seemed to work when I had this intention to go forward in developing wholesome qualities. In other words, when I had the intention to develop a lifestyle that was good, to develop a lifestyle that was beneficial, this is when meditation seemed to have an effect. But it was always still kind of this, struggle. I don't know, it wasn't like a terrible thing, just I wasn't that good at it. It was not the best, for years, just not just like one session, talking like, maybe 3, I don't know. It was a while that I was, maybe not the best meditator at that place. And in any event, what happened was you just kind of keep going to this place and keep trying to gradually change one's life. And I remember when I was in school, you would learn about these kind of things called the business, like the way that inventions happen in the business world. And what you tend to see in the business world is you have what they call kind of these incremental changes. They get some new technology, say like the Walkman. I don't know. I think all of us here may remember the Walkman. It was like a tape player that was portable, and you put your tape in it and you walk with it. It was the Walkman, And, they had these kind of incremental improvements to the Walkman. The Walkman's getting more buttons, the Walkman's, doing these various things. Okay, get all these different features to the Walkman. It keeps getting better and better and better. And then what happens is they have this kind of revolutionary change. And things keep improving. You have this revolution. And instead of the Walkman, a CD comes out. Instead of the tape player, and you now have these CDs. I remember the first time I ever heard a CD, by the way, I kind of was like, how did they rewind it so fast? I didn't know how it worked. I just knew that they kept getting the song exactly back to the beginning, and I was just baffled by that. But in any event, that's just kind of an aside. The thing about it is that this is the way that technological improvements tend to work in society. It's kind of this incremental change, slowly, bit by bit. But then comes a time when there's this kind of revolutionary change. And this is actually the same way that it works for our minds when we're trying to develop in wholesome qualities. Our meditation isn't just a technique that we do, it's a skill that we develop for the purpose of purifying our minds. Because this is actually where happiness comes from. It's like when a person has a room that's really dirty, kind of this really dirty room that has like chips thrown on the floor, and the chips got walked on and they got ground into the carpet, and then somebody spilled coffee on the floor and didn't clean it up, and then somebody didn't turn on the dehumidifier in the basement, so mold grew on the walls, and various things like this. And so then a person comes in, living in that room is a really terrible, unpleasant experience. You can get used to it, I guess, but what you're getting used to is living in a really bad situation. It's not that nice. So then eventually the time comes when a person thinks to themselves, I better give this room a clean. It's not that nice living in here. Maybe my lungs are starting to feel a little wheezy from all the mold. You know, maybe having this rotting food in the carpet isn't so good for my nose. So then they go and they take a broom and they take, you know, various types of cleaning implements. They take some Lysol maybe, and they spray it on the walls, and they wipe off the mold, and they sweep out the rug, and their room becomes a really nice place. It's kind of huge contrast between the mess that was in the room before and what it's like then. Then when you go into the room, it's immediately noticeable. And this is kind of what it can be like when we come for the first few times to clean out our minds. You kind of clean our minds from these unwholesome thoughts. It can be this huge, it can be this relief. We sit down to meditate and we try to train our minds away from these things. It can be noticeable, not for everybody. Some people, you know, don't notice at all, really, but other people it can be noticeable. And this is precisely because of this contrast. But one of the things that can happen is if we don't develop a lifestyle around this cleaning, if we keep eating chips in our room, throwing it on the floor, in about a week, the room is dirty again. The same level of dirt, and we go back, we have to scrub equally hard. We have to, you know, wipe, you know, using the same, maybe similar cleaning solutions, and then the room is clean again. But the thing that one notices when one has to clean off, and actually when I was, you know, if you're a novice monk, then you have to do all this cleaning. And what you notice about cleaning is that if you clean every single week, same bathroom, it actually takes much less time to bring it up to a high standard of cleaning. And the bathroom always looks clean. It doesn't look dirty throughout the week. You just keep cleaning it, then when you go back the next week, it's clean. All you have to do is a little bit of touching up here and there. And this is the same potential that people have for their minds, that people have for happiness in their minds, that people have for ease in their minds. This potential is theirs because there's lifestyles and there's habits that one can develop to make one's mind unhappy. There's lifestyles and habits that one can develop to make one's mind not at ease. But the opposite potential actually exists. The opposite potential is also true, that we can develop these habits, we can develop these lifestyles that will make our mind happy, that will make our mind at ease. So I think, you know, last week was telling people who were here that my friend sent me this kind of like neuroscience. My friend is really into like science, and he sent me this kind of neuroscience clip. You know, they do all these studies on people who meditate, and they study these kind of like Olympic level meditators who live in like Tibet and Nepal. And these people kind of meditate a lot. They've been meditating for like 30 years, maybe meditate 10 hours a day. And what they find is that there's these different kind of like waves in the brain. You know, science is always changing, but this is just, you know, a little info. And, you know, you've got your kind of regular waves, you've got your waves during sleep, and then you've got your kind of, you know, there's many different waves. And you've got this type of wave that you get when you have what's called a peak experience. You say you have this, you know, unexpected experience, you're looking out at a vista, and woo, you know, kind of, you know, your mind stops, and you're just absorbed into the view. Or you bite into an apple and woo, your mind, when you're really hungry maybe, your mind stops and it's kind of absorbed into this tastiness of the of the apple. What they found with these kind of Olympic level meditators, when that happens, that gives off what's called a gamma ray. I think that's the gamma wave. The gamma ray might be like some science fiction, you know, blaster. But it's this kind of gamma wave, this very high frequency brainwave. And what they found with these kind of Olympic level meditators is that's just the way that their brain is all the time. You know, their brain is always in this kind of gamma state, whatever that means scientifically. But the thing about this is, experientially what that means is that one can train one's mind to be happy. One can train one's mind to be at ease. So that just becomes one's normal way of interacting with the world. It doesn't have to be something super special anymore. It doesn't have to be something that one just feels after a retreat, that one just feels after meditation. It can become one's normal way of interacting with the world. And so this is the way that meditation works, with these kind of incremental changes, followed by these kind of revolutionary changes. So our meditation practice proceeds from doing these very small things. You come to start meditating, come to a meditation class, come to practice sitting and walking, come to train one's mind, and gradually people develop this kind of sense of ease. But the purpose of having the mind settle down like this is not just to consume a pleasant feeling in the mind, not just to have this sense of ease and then go, woo, party with it, like I did when I was young, have this sense of ease and then during the week, use that sense of ease to go and do more partying, go do more unskillful things, then one's room just becomes unclean again, becomes like it was before. But the purpose of having this is when we have our mind settled down, it's easier to see the reflection in the bowl. It's easier to see the ripples in the bowl, the movements in the water. And because it's easier to see those, it's easier to change them. It's easier to know which ones are worth changing, which ones aren't worth changing, and to change them more effectively, to change them more precisely. Because this is actually the proximate goal of our meditation. It's not just to sit, it's to develop a habit. It's to develop a habitual way of thinking, a habitual way of perceiving that's positive, that's wholesome, that goes away from unwholesome thinking and goes towards wholesome thinking. Because this is actually where happiness comes from this type of purified mind. So as one keeps doing this kind of thing gradually, bit by bit, bit by bit, bit by bit, gradually, 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 time comes when one's practice eventually comes to a head with one of these kind of defilements that might be in our minds. And this is different for everybody. And everybody gets tripped by different things. Everybody gets thrown off by different things. And this is why meditation is a skill. It's not just a technique that we can do all the time, because we each come to meditate with this very different makeup. But all of us know, everybody knows what it is that keeps throwing them off, what it is that keeps causing them to suffer. So when one keeps building these kind of incremental changes, incremental progress, bit by bit, step by step, training one's mind, then eventually the day comes that all that one is left with, that one needs to face, is just this kind of defilement that's left, whatever it is, at whatever level. Not just, there's still lots more till one's an arhat, but it builds up until one is face to face with one of these defilements that trips one up, that stops one from going forward. And it's when one develops these various skills in one's meditation practice that one turns one's attention to these various defilements, whatever it might be, whatever big thing might be tripping a person up. One turns one's attentions to those to try to find a solution to them, to try to find a way to overcome them. One learns to put forth effort against them, resisting them at every turn. The energy, the ease that one gets from one's meditation practice gets reinvested into this, gets reinvested into trying to overcome whatever negative habit it was, whatever negative quality of mind it is that now stares a person in the face, that's now left to be overcome. So the amazing thing about these things is that although they can seem overwhelming, whatever it might be, and then the tendency to want to distract oneself from them can come up. Can I make the room dirty again? If one perseveres, if one keeps searching for a solution, the time comes when whatever it is, whatever negative habit it was that was tripping one up, that can fall away. The habit that was causing one to suffer so much can fall away. And it can fall away in such a way that it basically doesn't really arise much again. So I often use that example, of smoking marijuana for everybody. But it can kind of happen with anything. It's kind of, that's the pattern in which these negative habits are overcome. That's the pattern in which they fall away. They don't arise. And this is the way in which the person's mind becomes purified. This is the way in which a person's mind becomes clean in such a way that it doesn't need this constant, every week, re-sweeping. And this is the way that the level of a person's mind rises. And so I think yesterday, or last week, was giving this example. Went down to the beach in Pickering, and the water level it's so high this year. It's there used to be this beach, and you could kind of walk around the edges of it, and there was all these old cottage walls, and you could kind of sneak past, and you could go to this hidden section of beach. You could keep going, and you'd end up at this conservation area. But the water level is actually so high that the beach is just gone. It's like up to where the old cottage walls were, and you can't. That section of beach that was hidden is now underneath the water. And so, in other words, this water, before it would reach up the beach. If it had very strong wind, it would reach up to the level where that was. You could see there'd be water, there could be watermarks, where you could see, okay, maybe the wind was very strong, maybe there's Lake Ontario might have some tide from the moon, and the water reached up there. But then, following day, or whenever that phenomenon passed, it went back down. So this is what it can be like for us if we don't keep a diligent effort, don't keep trying to plane away our unwholesome qualities. Our practice can become like this. It can reach up, but then can ebb back. It can move forward like a wave that has a lot of strong wind behind it, and then when the effort stops, it goes back. So our true goal in our practice is to make it more like this rain. This kind of constant rainfall this year just keeps coming. Then the whole level of the water rises. It just stays that way. It doesn't really go down. So, if it doesn't rain for another year or whatever, obviously it'll go down, but, this is kind of just by way of making a metaphor. We want to make our practice this way kind of constant, constantly planing away the unwholesome qualities in our mind, constantly developing the good qualities in our mind. This is why the Buddha says, he says, I think it's like an arrowsmith, kind of the arrowsmith gradually straightens a piece of wood, just takes like sliver by sliver by sliver by sliver to make this arrow straight. These the carpenters plane the wood, the arrowsmith whittles the arrow, and the wise people train themselves. The wise people plane away at their minds for the sake of making this level rise, for the sake of trying to find higher levels of happiness. Because this is the true potential with meditation. It's its true purpose is to find happiness. That's why we come to meditate. That's why people become Buddhist monks. This is the only reason. There's no other reason for meditating that's truly good except that. To try to find a happiness that's true. To try to find a happiness that lasts. To try to find a happiness that's stable. To try to find a happiness that's unaffected, that we can depend on. And so this type of happiness proceeds in this way. It proceeds through training, bit by bit, increment by increment. The Walkman gets a little better, gets a few more buttons, gets this and that. One stands face to face with whatever defilement may be pulling one down. And this is the opportunity for a revolutionary change, for the CD player to come out. And so this is how we can make our practice proceed. Bit by bit, the rain comes down. Bit by bit, the level rises. But when we practice constantly in this way, when we practice for the long term, when we practice to make our mind steady over a long period of time, what we get is a mind that's at ease, that's more at ease and more stable. You don't have to push so much, have this effort like a wind that pushes the wave up, the beach, only to have it fall down. This type of happiness is available to people so long as they keep planing away. Eventually the day comes when they notice that their arrow is much straighter than it used to be after all the planing. They notice that the level of the water has risen. It's now, getting close to touching the wall. And this is something that people know for themselves. They know it directly. They know directly that their happiness is increased. They know directly that their mind is becoming more purified. And this is why the Buddhist teachings are said to be pacchatang veditabo, to be known individually by the wise. Each person for themselves, whoever practices, can come to know this directly, can come directly to know a true peace in their mind.